It's time to eat.
What are you hungry for?
Sit down and get ready to consume an abundance of fantasy football knowledge from Ross Tucker and Joe Dolan.
Feed me now. I'm starving.
On the Fantasy Feast Eating Podcast.
Yeah, let's eat, baby. It is the Fantasy Feast Eating Podcast, of course, presented by DraftKings. If you could not tell, I am not Ross Tucker, former NFL offensive lineman. I am Jack Connell, former high school offensive lineman. For those of you unaware with our podcast and stuff, I am the producer of all of the shows on the Ross Tucker podcast, Fantasy Feast, Even Money, College Draft. Ross, unfortunately, decided to get quite sick over this weekend, or I guess yesterday, pretty much, so he is unavailable for today's show. So I'm going to fill in, I decided, I think it might be decent. We'll find out. Of course, joining me, as always, is Joe Dolan. You can find Joe on Twitter at FG_Dolan, fantasypoints.com. Make sure you use that code 24Feast. Joe, how are you doing today?
Jack, it's funny that Ross is sick. I have been battling something myself, man. I don't know what it is. They dug up my lawn last week to resod it. My lawn was just a disaster. So they had to resod it, and I thought pretty much right away that it was allergies from all that stuff that was coming, because I've been coughing and sneezing, and I don't know, it's stuck with me here, and I wonder if I might have a little bit of the COVID, this would probably be my third time with it, but I don't feel awful, but I've been coughing so much that I'm in physical distress. I turn 38 next week, all right? Coughing hurts your abs, your back at this point. And you're like, oh man, it's just been, don't get old, man. It's just been awful. But I was able to actually pull myself together and make it here. Ross must be really hurting if he didn't make it. So hopefully Ross feels better and we're able to reconvene next week.
Yeah, but I mean, hopefully, have you been able to try out the new, it's a little off from our topics, but have you been able to try out the new college football game at all? Have you been scouting there?
Yeah, I bought it. I've been playing it. So I do play games. I like video games, but even though I'm in the sports industry, I am not a sports gamer. I haven't played a sports game since MLB The Show 5 years ago, and it got so frustrating because I just wasn't good enough to compete online. I would get to a point where I'm like, man, I'm pretty good at this, and then you go online and there's these people using the first-person cameras and all that stuff, and I just couldn't compete with these people, and I was like, I'm done. I'm out. That it's a time suck, and I can't. But all my buddies wanted to do a dynasty for college football. We haven't started it yet, but I've been playing the game a little bit, and the one thing that I can't get over is that they knew there was going to be all us kids who grew up with college football or NCAA football at the time on PS2. Those were the ones that really got into the recruiting and the dynasty mode, who haven't played a football game in a decade. And there's no, unless I haven't found it, there's no, clear-cut tutorial mode that's hey, this little icon over your defender's head, that's what this means. That's what, so I'm, flying by the seat of my pants here. I've been playing the mini games. They have mini games that show you how to, you throw the ball through the target here and you get points. And I've been doing pretty well at those. But in the in-game action, my defenders have 5 blue dots over there. I don't know what that means. I don't know what it means. And I don't see where I can go to find out what it means. So I've been trying to find on YouTube a catch-up guide for somebody like me who hasn't played Madden or college football in, I haven't played Madden since Madden 12. I think that's my last one. So there's got to be a catch-up guide for somebody like me where, all right, you haven't played this game in a while. Here's all you need to know. Here's some really interesting tips and tricks to get started. I need that. So I've been flying by the seat of my pants. I won a game on All-American difficulty. I was my alma mater, Penn State. I played against Temple. But I only won by 6 points, which, the talent gap's a little bit more than that. So I've been like going back and forth. Should I play on varsity so I can just start whipping teams so like I can get the hang of the game? So that's kind of where I'm at with it. I'm having fun. I'm enjoying playing it. Don't get me wrong. It's just if I had a tutorial mode where I'm like, hey, that's what these 3 buttons here mean. You know, it took me forever to realize that if I brought up the play art on my like a read option play, that it actually shows you in the play art which defender you need to read. So that's been kind of helpful, but I had to figure that out on my own. So like it feels like there should be a mode that tells me, not just a mini game, that tells me these are the things that are going on the field and look out for this. So that's my little rant because I haven't played a college football game. Obviously, nobody has. I haven't played one in 11 years, so I needed some help there.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'll be your guide here. The blue dots are specifically on your defensive line. They're basically how many pass rushing moves you have, like your stamina. So, like, the better you are, the more blue dots you have, and it's just basically like a swim.
Figure that out?
Because it's a thing that's been in Madden for like 6 years. So they assume that you've at least played Madden in the last 5 or so years. So it's something that's been involved.
You know what
in
happens
there,
when you assume, but right?
Yeah, I'm aware. Yeah, but yeah, I could agree that there could be a tutorial guide in there. I'm sure there will be one eventually.
Yeah, I just wish I feel like this would be the perfect game for that, just because you knew it was going to get all the old heads. So like I know I'm complaining. Look, I play video games, okay? Like I've piled I need to finish Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. I've piled like 70 hours into it, but like this football game, it's got the bells and whistles, and whew, it's been a whirlwind for me, but I'll definitely be playing a whole lot in the coming months.
So last thing on this, because I need to figure this out, because this will basically judge you as a person completely. Before we move today's show, we're going to be previewing the positional battles to watch across training camps as teams report. The Houston Texans, as we speak, are reporting today on the 17th. What team are you picking in Dynasty mode?
So, okay, I haven't chosen yet because we're doing an online Dynasty. And first and foremost, Jack, I need to before I answer your question, can I have you on like retainer where like I can text you and I'm like, all right, what the hell is this button and why does this guy have fire over his head and I don't understand that either. But so here's what we're doing. We got 8 of us. Tom Brawley, who you might know from the podcast or the website, he's one of the 8. What we're going to do is we're going to divide us 8 into the 4 power conferences, not including, unfortunately, the Pac-12, which is now the Pac-2. And what we're going to do is we're going to have like a draft of teams. The only stipulation is you have to pick one of the 2 or 3 worst teams in those power conferences. So we decided like we want to have the opportunity to like meet in the playoff, right? And not all of us play in the same conference. So the compromise was we're going to put 2 teams, 2 of us 8, in each of the 4 power conferences, and you have to require another user out of conference every year on the schedule. So that's what we're going to do. So whatever team I'm picking, it is going to stink. So I'm not going to be picking Alabama. It's not going to happen. I have to figure out which of the teams are the worst in the power conferences, but it's gonna be fun to play with people.
We're doing something similar amongst my friends. I think we have at least 12, maybe 14 of us. The stipulations are you have to be a 1 or a 2-star program, which is basically any G5 program, and we are repopulating the Pac-12 amongst ourselves. So I'm Marshall.
Oh, that's fun.
So that'll be what we're doing. It'll be interesting to see how friendships are ruined off of the recruitment and stuff like that, and 5 stars. But all right, let's move forward to training camp, Joe.
Yeah.
Like we mentioned, Houston Texans are back today. A couple teams have been coming in the last few days, rookies and veterans reporting the next few days. There are got to be some big key positional battles to watch across for fantasy football-wise. Obviously, not many quarterback battles, Pittsburgh, some others, but there are some pretty key running back and wide receiver battles. Yeah. But we'll start with those quarterbacks, glance over the ones. What do you think are the big quarterback positional battles to watch?
So, the big ones are going to involve like the rookie quarterbacks, right? Like how soon can Drake May and JJ McCarthy get on the field? And I think the prevailing sentiment right now, Jack, is that neither one of those guys is going to start in week 1. And if one of those guys was slated to sit the entire year, My guess would be it would be Drake May. For a couple of reasons. Number one, Jacoby Brissett might be the best backup quarterback in the NFL. Ergo, he might be a starter this year because I think they signed him with the intention that he was going to help develop their quarterback of the future. Number two for the Patriots is they don't have a great supporting cast. Their offensive line might be the worst in the NFL. Their receiving group is a smorgasbord of ass, and they're just hoping that Jalen Polk or Javon Baker, both of whom I like as prospects, by the way, can come in here and step up and help that receiving group. Kendrick Bourne's coming off a torn ACL. Pop Douglas has some juice to him, but none of these receivers are getting drafted early. Hunter Henry is really their best receiver. So the Patriots, barring Drake May just completely lighting the world on fire in training camp, I anticipate that he's going to sit for a while. So there's a battle to watch. J.J. McCarthy is really interesting, though. Because, look, we know what happened with Jordan Addison, the arrest. And, look, I say it on here, like, kids make mistakes, but it's something he's got to learn from. The thing that's interesting about J.J. McCarthy is he's a great athlete. And the Vikings have an excellent supporting cast, presuming Jordan Addison's going to be available for the whole season, which he might not be. There was a couple of years ago, Sam Sherman of Established Run pointed this out. Deontay Hardy got arrested for a DUI in July and actually got suspended in season when that investigation wrapped up. So there's a chance Jordan Addison gets suspended this year. But even regardless of that, you have a very good offensive line with two young tackles, young-ish tackles. Darisaul's young. Brian O'Neill turns 29 in August. You've got the best receiver in football in Justin Jefferson. That's TJ Hawkinson might be able to come back midseason from his torn ACL. That's a situation where JJ McCarthy, if he comes into the lineup, he might actually have fantasy value because he can run. He's got good. We're talking about a team here, Jack. In week 16 last year, even though he threw 4 interceptions, Nick Mullins threw for over 400 yards and 2 touchdowns. Nick Mullins put up fantasy numbers. And they drafted J.J. McCarthy to be their quarterback of the future. So Minnesota's one I'm watching. And then, of course, the saddest quarterback battle is that of the Raiders. Gardner Minshew and Aiden O'Connell. Which of them will be throwing to a disgruntled Davante Adams, or which of them will be throwing to a team that decides to trade Davante Adams? That's the sad quarterback battle that doesn't have a huge fantasy impact.
So the thing with McCarthy that I think is interesting, I'll get your thoughts on. I've heard from people that have been around Sam Darnold before in the Vikings, as well. Greg Cosell mentioned it. They think that Darnold could be a long-term starter, not long-term, but mainly this season, because the Vikings are in a position to win. They're not like the Patriots and these other rebuilding teams with young quarterbacks. So do you think that impacts Darnold, like him starting? Does that impact McCarthy at all?
So here's the thing. One thing that we've seen from Sam Darnold in his career so far is that Sam Darnold and window to win are mutually exclusive. Like they're oil and water, man. That doesn't jibe with me. Sam Darnold has had flashes and then he turns into Sam Darnold. I'll believe it when I see it. I do expect he'll start the season, and he might start the season high. We saw he had a run with Carolina a couple years ago where he came out and, oh, look, Sam Darnold, he's doing some things, and then he turned back into Sam Darnold. But I wouldn't be surprised if he has a few big weeks early in the season.
You didn't mention Pittsburgh. Is there anything? I mean, it seems like Russell Wilson's going to be the starter. Is there anything there because Fields can be a viable fantasy option?
It is actually worth mentioning. I actually just drafted Justin Fields in the Scott Fish Bowl as my third quarterback because Scott Fish Bowl, by the way, also has return yardage scoring, and we'll see if they actually do that Justin Fields as the kickoff returner whole spiel. But I actually anticipate that at some point this year, Justin Fields is going to play. Just because I think Russ is cooked. But look, they're going to play big, dumb Arthur Smith football. They're going to run the ball, and they're going to try to hide the quarterback. And if Russell Wilson can hand the ball off, then that's great. If he can't, they'll go to Fields, even though Fields provides a more dynamic element to the run game. I think they truly expect to try to win with Russ.
All right, good to know. We'll switch from the quarterbacks here and go to the running backs. There's a couple battles there. I mean, I don't know. Who do you think is the biggest running back battle to watch?
So there's honestly, this is one of the most interesting teams to watch. The Los Angeles Chargers have a $250 million quarterback and a completely reconstructed spare part roster around him. And the one thing we know about Jim Harbaugh and Greg Roman, they believe in running the football. They've come out all offseason and have said it. Everything they've done this offseason indicates they want to run the football. There were 2 potentially elite wide receiver prospects on the board when they drafted Joe Alt in the top 5. Malik Neighbors and Rome Odunze. They didn't draft either one of them. They were rumored maybe Brock Bowers. Didn't draft them. They drafted the tackle. And Jim Harbaugh and Joe Hortiz, the new general manager, have come in and said, we want to change the attitude. We want to change the culture. And they think that culture is going to be punching you in the mouth. The problem here is their most established back on the roster is Gus Edwards. Now, Gus Edwards knows the offense. Gus Edwards is coming off a double-digit touchdown season with Baltimore. Remember, he played under Greg Roman in Baltimore. He is by far the favorite to be the lead running back. The problem is he's 29 years old and has an injury history. J.K. Dobbins, who also knows the offense, he's 25 years old, but has one of the most frightening injury histories a running back's ever seen. He has a multi-ligament knee tear and an Achilles. Those are not season-ending injuries, Jack. Those are career-altering injuries. J.K. Dobbins could be the lead back for the Chargers, or he could not even make the team because there's not a lot of guaranteed money in his deal. So they were one of those teams, you expected them to draft a running back on day 2 of the draft. They didn't. They didn't draft a running back until they drafted Kamani Vidal out of Troy in the 3rd round, on day 3 in the 6th round. And one of the things that they've been saying about Kamani Vidal, I talked to David Drogemeyer of the Locked On Chargers podcast, and he said, one thing that stands out about Vidal, and they've pointed this out, is he was a great pass blocker in college. And that's not something that you hear a lot about running backs in college. That's something that I think they develop in the pro game. And the fact that Vidal has that in his toolkit is really intriguing to me, because if J.K. Dobbins doesn't look like himself, there's an opportunity here for Kamani Vidal to take a role. And fantasy drafters have been kind of aggressive on that. Like, he's going ahead of J.K. Dobbins in drafts. So this is a team you know is going to run the football. You know Justin Herbert is going to take fewer pass attempts per game. But which of the guys is going to benefit? The best bet is Gus Edwards. J.K. Dobbins is younger. Can he look like his old self? Kamani Vidal is a complete wild card. This isn't like the sexiest running back battle, but it's a very impactful one. And it's certainly one that we're going to have to follow throughout training camp.
You know what goes better more than Greg Roman in an established running game, Joe? You and a Labatt Blue Light. You want to make sure to take things to the next level, drink some Labatt Blue Lights with your friends, and live life to the power of we. Always enjoy responsibly. Beer, Labatt USA, Buffalo, New York. We only got a few minutes left here, Joe. Very quickly before we go to the wide receivers and tight ends. Obviously, there's a lot of trade rumors about Davante Adams. There's some rumors. They've come out and denied said rumors. The wide receiver show kind of spelled some of those with his comments on the field. Are you taking any of that into account when drafting Davante Adams this year?
Yeah, I think I am, because here's the difference between Brandon Aiyuk and Davante Adams. First and foremost, I just want to flat out say it. I am so freaking sick of talking about Brandon Aiyuk. Like, there's new tidbits every day, but the problem is we still have the same crap to talk about. I don't know if he's going to dig his heels in, but there's a big key difference between Brandon Aiyuk and Davante Adams. The 49ers trading Brandon Aiyuk would hurt their 2024 team. The Raiders trading Davante Adams would hurt their 2024 team. But only one of those teams is a contender. it probably behooves the Raiders to trade Davante Adams. Because right now, look, you have Gardner Minshew and Aiden O'Connell. We've seen stranger things than somebody like Aiden O'Connell becoming a franchise quarterback, but let's just be frank. The odds are not high that that's the case. That Aiden O'Connell is the quarterback that the Raiders are going to build their team around. I'm willing to be wrong on that, but the odds are not in his favor. The Raiders, for them to compete for that division, what would have to happen? Patrick Mahomes would have to get hurt, and Andy Reid would have to retire. Because, even still, I would still put a Carson Wentz-led Chief team coached by Andy Reid as the best team in that division. Justin Herbert would probably also have to get hurt with the Chargers. Now, if Justin Herbert got hurt, the Chargers were going to be completely awful. And then the Broncos might stink. Maybe the Raiders are sitting here saying, well, we're better than the Broncos. Okay, yay. Congratulations. The Raiders should be looking for the future. Trading Davante Adams right now, you might get a decent pick. It's not going to be a 1 at this stage because of his age. But you might get a decent pick that might help you build for the future. The Raiders should be looking to deal Davante Adams, in my opinion. And they can save money if they do it because it's post-June 1 if they trade him. So I actually believe there might be some smoke to that fight, even though they're denying it. I wouldn't be stunned. Look, maybe a team has an injury, a contender has an injury, and the Raiders decide, you know what? Let's cash this ticket in. It didn't work out. And send him somewhere where he's got a chance to win, because it doesn't matter. If the Raiders go 9-8 this year and make the playoffs, yay. Their fans will have a fun season, but they're not a contender. Davante Adams is 30-plus years old. It's time to move on from him, in my opinion.
I mean, I will say before we move to the positional battles, I take your O'Connell slights personally. We have a bond between our last names, so I don't appreciate you slandering Aiden O'Connell the way you did.
Well, he's of Connell, right? He's O'Connell. So you're just Connell. Yeah, so that's what that means. Aiden O'Connell. I don't know. That was a semi-Scottish Russian accent when I pulled out here. Guy, dude, I'm pumped full of cough syrup right now, okay? So you gotta forgive me. No, but that's what O'Connell means. He's from Connell. Right?
I feel like I should know that because I'm Irish, but I don't. Before you run out of your energy from your cough syrup, we have 2.5 minutes here. Give me the key positional one wide receiver, one tight end battle to watch.
Okay, so the Chargers. By the way, the Chargers are all over this list because I was wondering who might be this year's Nico Collins, and I wonder if it might be Joshua Palmer. That's a pretty key one to watch here. Because somebody's going to catch the pass. Somebody's going to catch passes from Justin Herbert. It's just a matter of who. Another one that I'm really interested in, the Indianapolis Colts. They have a ton of young athletic tight ends on this team. Jelani Woods missed all of last year, but he's a freak show. He's 6'7" and can run. Kylan Granson, who's more of I would put him more in the Zach Ertz kind of guy, just an undersized but good receiver. They have the adult film star Mo Alley Cox, and they also have Will Mallory. They have Drew Ogletree on that team as well. The Colts are a team. Jelani Woods is a guy who's getting drafted in the last round of best ball drafts because of his athletic ability. So I want to see what he looks like in training camp. And another one here, I know Tucker Kraft is injured. The Packers tight end situation is fascinating as well because they drafted both Luke Musgrave and Tucker Kraft last year, and both of them kind of flashed at times. So I want to see what happens with that Packer tight end battle, if Tucker Kraft is even going to be ready for training camp. And if he's not, can Luke Musgrave stay on the field? Because that was always Luke Musgrave's problem. When he was at Oregon State, he couldn't stay on the field. And of course, he got hurt last year as well. But that guy's a really talented player, and that's a tight end battle I'm looking to watch.
Very interesting indeed. I appreciate you, Joe. I appreciate you guys listening through as Ross is battling his illness. Make sure to wish him luck. The one thing I would like to hear from you guys in the comments, side note, what is your college football 25 dynasty? Because I am taking the reins, I am now choosing the comments. I want to know what your college football dynasty team is. Make sure to tune in next week when Ross is fully healthy. Ross Tucker Football Podcast. Today we had Andrew Siciliano. Monday we had Dr. David Chow. The great Greg Cosell tomorrow's episode. Make sure you tune in. check out our best ball drafts we've got going on. It's best ball week was last week at DraftKings, but still always make sure to check out best ball. And we appreciate you guys. We are stuffed. We are done.
Thanks for tuning in to Fantasy Feast. Make sure to also check out the Ross Tucker Football Podcast, Even Money, and College Draft, all on the DraftKings Network, YouTube, or subscribe to the podcast on your favorite platform.